Chiefs Kingdom, it is finally here. It is Super Bowl week. And as Patrick Mahomes tries to add another ring to his resume, I think it's finally time to have the talk. Should we start considering Patrick Mahomes the greatest of all time? But before we do get into all of that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video, as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chiefs related that you do not want to miss out on. And without further ado, let's have some fun. Now, I'm already kind of anticipating what I'm going to get in the comment section in this video because, of course, majority of you that are going to comment are going to be Kansas City Chiefs fans and you're going to be down with everything I'm saying. But the thumbnail will grab a lot of people, specifically NFL media people, NFL fan bases, and they will be like, of course, this biased Chiefs fan is speaking way too much and doesn't even respect the game. And that is not true. So with that, we're going to fully discuss not the history of the NFL, but some of the greatest quarterbacks to ever do it. Of course, Tom Brady, and the path Patrick Mahomes has taken to basically try to get himself to be the greatest to ever do it. But with that, let's dissect, let's have fun, and let's discuss. So the reason I'm making this video in the first place is one, because I think it's a great topic of conversation to have, because once Patrick Mahomes, if or when he does do it, and if it is next week, if he does get his second Super Bowl ring, I do believe it is a legit discussion. But also, the conversation was brought on Colin Cowherd's show, and he basically made some very, very great points to support Patrick Mahomes and say that at least he's the greatest athlete we have ever witnessed at the quarterback position. And it's something we need to give recognition to, even if it does seem early or not. Yes, you can give the accolades to Tom Brady. He has every record. He has all the rings. But if you're looking at it from a physical quarterback standpoint and who you would want to mock up to be your dream quarterback, nobody is better than Patrick Mahomes at it. And yes, year 6, and we're saying that. And he's got plenty more to go. But if he stays on this trajectory throughout his career, and let's say he plays 15 years, like what he's done so far in his first 5 years, 5 AFC championships. I'm not saying he's going to go to 15 straight AFC championship games. That is ridiculous, and that would definitely me being completely biased. I would definitely love it, but let's say, I'm not even going to say he's going to play the amount of years Tom Brady did, so that's why I'm sticking with 15, because what Tom Brady has done throughout his career has been amazing, has been second to none, and honestly, as a Chiefs fan, it's something we will never witness at a quarterback position again. But begs a question here. If someone was to say, go on that same path and try to replicate what Tom Brady does, as an active QB in this league, everyone would look towards Patrick Mahomes to be the next man to do it. Not saying he will, but everybody would put that betting ticket in and say Patrick Mahomes will be that next man up. And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And there's nothing with giving, well, now it is the past, and Tom Brady his flowers, and giving the present his flowers as well too. And I just want everyone to literally look at what Patrick Mahomes has done in his first 5 years, because I can't insist this enough and put it on you guys enough, because yes, he's been to 5 straight AFC championship games, but also what, 4 out of those 5 he could have been to 4 Super Bowls in a row. Like literally, like his first AFC championship game against New England, if it wasn't for miscues, if it wasn't for an offsides penalty, that game's not going to overtime. And Mahomes is taking this team to a Super Bowl. And he was playing with one of the worst defenses in the league. And then in that Super Bowl against Tampa Bay, if he had, I'm not saying they would have won, but if he would have had a little bit of O-line, he would have made that game much, much more interesting. And he already made it as interesting as could be with all those drop passes and with him basically flying on the side of his body and throwing the ball around. But that's not the point I'm trying to make here, because a lot of people want to focus on the jewelry. And when you focus on Tom Brady's at 7, it's outstanding. Like, that's where no one thinks anybody will touch. But then you start going down the list of guys, when the next closest man up is Joe Montana and Terry Bradshaw with 4. And it's funny we should talk about those 2 guys and just focus on them for a little bit, because before it was Tom Brady, I think a lot of, or not majority of the fan bases would say Joe Montana was the greatest quarterback to ever do it. And honestly, some people might still feel that way with Joe Montana. But if you focus on Terry Bradshaw, nobody ever puts him in that category as the greatest to ever do it. And nobody really focuses on his rings, whether or not he was a solid quarterback or a Hall of Fame quarterback throughout his career. They focused on the team around him, that Steelers defense. And that's what this has mostly got to be focused on, is this is a team sport. And you got to focus on some of Brady's rings, or I don't want to say majority of his rings like that, but he had some stellar defenses that got him those rings. And again, I sound like I'm selling Brady short, but I'm really not, because he is a great quarterback. He is an all-time legend. But I can't be misplaced to say he did it all on his own. Like with Patrick Mahomes' first ring, that was gutsy. And at the end of the day, he had to will his team to find a way to win, and that's what an ultimate competitor does. But if you look on the defensive side of the ball, he wasn't working with too much. I think it was bottom tier that year, and even the year before is a reason he couldn't get his team into the championship, into the Super Bowl game. So that's all in all with that. That's why I want people, when they focus on greatest of all time or simplistics and calling it the GOAT, yes, Tom Brady, he's got every record. But if you're looking at a dream quarterback, I think you look at Patrick Mahomes. But it's funny, I want to make it much more simpler than Mahomes against Brady or the accolades and the records, because it seems like we've been going through this with Brady throughout his whole career. And maybe that makes us tired of seeing Brady at the top, which we're kind of seeing. Definitely as a Kansas City Chiefs fan, you see it in the Kansas City Chiefs era where they've been good, where people want them to fall off and want the new king to come up, whether it be the Cincinnati Bengals, the Buffalo Bills, the Chargers, you name it. They want to be replaced. And that was the same thing going on throughout the Brady era too. And everyone would try to anoint a new greatest of all time or someone that could eventually pass Tom Brady. And for a long time, it was Aaron Rodgers, because he was God's gift with arm talent and athleticism and you name it. But then those accolades just weren't coming through. And then people started putting like red flags on Aaron Rodgers and things like that, saying, man, he isn't the greatest of all times because he can't take his team to get Super Bowls year in and year out the way Tom Brady does. But again, you gotta look at it in full and look at what basically the team, the GM, ownership does to build around these star quarterbacks. And in Green Bay, they never really did it. We hear it year in and year out. Green Bay never got Aaron Rodgers the weapons. Aaron Rodgers, he had some good defenses throughout his years, but also he had some bottom tier defenses as well, where he was trying to fight and will his way to get into even a championship game. And it was always a struggle because they had lower tier talent. That's why I say, yes, Brady's rings are good, but those are like team accomplishments. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm slighting Brady whatsoever, because nobody would ever do what he did. And he proved it too when he went to Tampa. But Tampa was also a nice solid roster when he came in, when he had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and then Leonard Fournette followed, and then he already had a stellar defense. Tom Brady is good at managing his career, and that's what he did there to make sure he would add another Super Bowl ring to his resume. And also it helps too when you're kind of having a GOAT discussion and it kind of dwindles down my debate with Patrick Mahomes, is because he beat Patrick Mahomes in a head-to-head. Whether it be Patrick Mahomes that had O-line issues or not, at the end of the day, he took away the W. But I remember when I first became a fan of this game, and the biggest rivalry out there was Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, and you would always watch these guys go neck and neck. And at the end of the day, Peyton Manning wasn't winning many of those games. Tom Brady was always coming out ahead, and that's how we always focused on it. We didn't focus on it being the New England Patriots versus the Indianapolis Colts, because you just look at the higher prolific players. And a lot of us, and probably the majority of us, if we focused on the quarterback, 9 out of 10 of us would still take Peyton Manning, because when we watched Peyton Manning on the field, nobody dissected the field like Peyton Manning, and he worried the hell out of everybody, and he was setting records, he was breaking everything. He was the reason why the Indianapolis Colts were good year in and year out. And same with Tom Brady as well, but it just seemed like it just felt different with Peyton Manning. And then also, you felt the same with Aaron Rodgers, but not to that extent, and there was never no rivalry there, but it was the athleticism and then the arm work. And then now you start having the modern era come in, where you have the Patrick Mahomes of the world, the Kyler Murrays, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson. The quarterback position starts to evolve a little bit. But the difference with Patrick Mahomes over the majority of these guys, and I don't want to sound like I'm calling them out, but it's like, this kid is a competitor, like a competitor to the next level, where you could tell rings are his main focus, and he's mentioned it time in and time out. He's after what Brady has, and it will take a long time to go after that. And as I broke down the list a little more, is like, what Brady has done with 7 Super Bowl rings is really stupid. Like, it's going to be hard for anyone to touch it, but if anyone wants to do it, it would be Patrick Mahomes. But then the next closest guys up are, I almost missed it. And I said it earlier. It's not, Troy Aikman has 3, which is what I was going to get to, but it's Joe Montana and Terry Bradshaw. And then the next one down is Troy Aikman, another guy who we don't really focus on, like 3 Super Bowl rings are Troy Aikman's. We focus that Dallas Cowboy team was just a unit. Like, it was hard to beat in the 90s. And he was the guy to lead him his way. But then it's funny. Then you start focusing on the Mannings, Eli and Peyton, Ben Roethlisberger. Two Super Bowl rings there. That's the group Patrick Mahomes will put himself in already. Year 6. Only played 5 years. Imagine if he just kept this kind of trajectory and say in the next 5 years, he walks away with another 2 Super Bowl rings. That's 4. So are we really focusing on accolades at this point? Or are we focusing on the player? I think it's nothing wrong if you want to call Patrick Mahomes the greatest of all time already to do it, because what he's doing right now, the same as what Brady has done throughout his career, is probably something we will never see. And if Patrick Mahomes can keep this path and this trajectory, I don't want to doubt it, but it's like I'm 50-50 with it. Like, because I feel like at the end of the day, I would love to say, and there's a part of me that would say, man, Patrick Mahomes has a legit shot at getting after Brady's ring. But also, too, then I'm kind of discrediting everything Brady's done. And I don't want to have it seem to come off that way, but also, no one has ever done what Patrick Mahomes has done, like I mentioned, coming into this league. So I do view it as a very interesting debate. And also, if you kind of flip sports and you focus on basketball as well, Bill Russell, he has the most championships, but no one focuses on him as the greatest of all time. Of course, it's Jordan, it's your LeBron, it's your Kobe. You name it, Bill Russell is never discussed in that aspect whatsoever. So just if you focus on rings as your greatest of all time instead of the player, a lot of people can get lost in the sauce. So I think it's a very interesting conversation. I think it was a good video to start the week off and basically have fun. Let's discuss. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate comments, definitely from NFL fan bases, be like, you are smoking on that good because you're already throwing Patrick Mahomes in that conversation. But again, if you look at all these new modern quarterbacks, and all these teams actually right now, they're trying to do what the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes are doing, and they're having a hard time shutting it down. And it definitely reminds you a lot of what Bill Belichick and Tom Brady did earlier on. Everybody was trying to knock them out, and they just couldn't do it. If you can't see the similarities there, I don't know what to tell you. But all I can say, as a Kansas City Chiefs fan, I love having Patrick Mahomes as my quarterback. And hey, if he gets me 7 Super Bowl rings, that is way more than I've ever expected as a fan. It is definitely a high bar that's set, but he even mentioned it's something he is gunning for. But with that, Chiefs Kingdom and NFL fan bases that are checking out, let me know how you feel. Do you think Patrick Mahomes should be considered as one of the greatest to ever do it right now? Do you feel like he needs more hardware before we can even have this discussion? Let's have fun. Let's discuss. I will check back in with y'all shortly, but please do subscribe to the channel. Give me that big thumbs up and like this video. Y'all take care. Peace.